Hello, and welcome to Young Global Leaders, where we get the chance to hear from young people, hailing from all around the world, sharing about themselves, their accomplishments, and their vision for a better world. Recently, I had the privilege of leading a group of about 100 young people from over 40 countries to 7 global regions on an 8-month global gap year program. Most of them had just graduated from high school, though we also had a few older students. During our 8+ months together, the students formed a deeply loving and supportive community. Anyone could see that they had built something unique and inspiring. Through my eyes as a teacher, coach, and global leadership consultant, what I saw was unlike anything I'd seen before. When the program ended, I desperately wanted to keep in touch with these students and to share their example with the world. So I started the Young Global Leaders podcast. Today, we hear from Christiaan Burger. Christiaan Burger, welcome to Young Global Leaders.
Hey, Jason. So nice to see you. Very excited. Thank you.
Yeah, really nice to see you too. It's been a few months now. The time just keeps flying on by. What is it? January 23rd, we were recording this, and it's now been just over 8 months since our program ended, and it's just hard to believe, but here we are. Could you start by letting our listeners know where you're joining us from today and what has brought you there?
Yes. Very interesting story, actually. So I'm calling from Canton, New York, upstate New York, where this week it will reach temperatures of -20. So, yeah, very cold. It's very interesting because I never actually really wanted to go to the US. I remember when I first applied and I was talking to Farhad, I was telling Farhad that there's no chance of me going to the US. I'm going to Europe, or I'm studying in South Africa, where I'm originally from. And now I ended up here, very happy. So, yeah.
Well, so how did that's especially counterintuitive in this particular historical period, because I know a lot of students who had originally planned on coming to the United States decided not to because of all of the issues around visas given the current administration here in the United States. So what can you share with us about how you ended up kind of doing the inverse of what so many other students are doing?
Yeah. So, ever since I was a kid, I had this idea that I wanted to go and study in the Netherlands because I actually got my Dutch passport just last year. So I'm a dual national now, and I wanted to go to the Netherlands. That's where my grandparents are all from. And I had that idea. So I studied in Japan for 3 years to finish my high school. And my plan was I'm going to go to Japan. And then after that, I'm going to go to the Netherlands. And then I applied to the Netherlands. And even though I could study for almost free, living in the Netherlands is not what I thought it would be. And then I spoke to Nico and Kaina, 2 other students in our gap year program, and they told me about the school. And I reached out to the admissions counselor. They have a specific admissions counselor specifically for UWC students. And I reached out to him. I called him quickly, and I was wowed. I was wowed with myself first because it's something that I never thought I would want to do. I had this idea that I never wanted to go to the US, and I never even considered it then. And then I talked to him and I was like, wow, Christiaan, why have I not considered this? And I applied and I got in, and yeah, it worked out to be the best option for me.
And so far, so good?
I loved it. I made a lot of friends. It's a liberal arts school, so it's about 2,000 students. And I love that because everyone knows everyone. I'm very close to the teachers, and it almost just kind of feels like a high school because my classes are my stats class today, we had 12 students, and we're super close with the professors, super close with everyone. And yeah, I love that.
Excellent. Well, I'm really happy to hear that. And it's great that you and Baret Scholars student Nico are roommates, and that Kainat. So our listeners will know Kainat from an earlier episode of Young Global Leaders. I think she was our 4th guest. Anyway, wonderful story. Thank you for sharing all of that. Christiaan, moving on to the next question. What can you share with us about what makes you, you?
That's so interesting. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking, what made me in South Africa? Well, before I started traveling and then now. And then I was thinking who I was then, and then who I was in Japan, and who I was in my gap year, and who I am now are 4 completely different people. And it's funny how it kind of went up and down. not like a straight line or anything. So I think when I was in South Africa, up until I was 15, I was very, very outgoing. I was super confident. I was a huge debater, public speaker.
Mm.
And then I went to UWC, and I got very, very introverted. I got very, very overwhelmed with a lot of people. And it's funny because it was like a complete shift of who I thought I was and how comfortable I felt going out and speaking. Well, that was the first environment where I really spoke English. So for me, that was also, I don't know, that kind of challenged me a bit. And I think that completely changed my personality. And then after 3 years, I got a bit more confident. And then I went on Baret, and it was the complete opposite again. I felt so comfortable with all of these people. I didn't have any stress. And I feel like that was my outgoing self again. I feel like I got that debater public speaking me again. And I think that really helped me, because I think one of the things that I loved most about this year was just speaking to as many people as I could. And for me, it was really, really important to be outgoing this year. And I think, that was one of my main qualities that I loved. And now that I'm in uni, I feel like it's going the other way around again. I enjoy having my solitude and doing my own thing. So very interesting. Yeah,
Well, it is interesting, and I love the insight about how we change with the context that we're in, and we respond in different ways to different contexts. So I'm gonna probe just a little bit and ask you if you have detected any consistent through lines through those 4 different versions of you.
That's interesting. I think. Mm, I think the goals of what I wanted has always been the same. I feel like when I was in South Africa, I knew that I wanted more and I wanted to go to UWC. When I was in UWC, I knew that I wanted to do something big. And then I got Baret, and I took a whole gap year, something that I never thought I would do. And then again, when I was in UWC, I came to the US, something I never thought I wanted to do. And now I'm at that stage of, okay, what am I going to do over summer? What am I going to do after this? And it's probably going to be something that I thought I'd never want to do. And I think that's a pattern that I would like to continue, for the rest of my life.
That's great. And sort of endless discovery and endless surprise.
Exactly, yes.
Fantastic. Well, moving on to our next question. We'd love to hear more about your story and what brought you to Baret Scholars. So what can you share with us about your background and how you came to be a part of the program?
Yes. So I spoke a bit already about how I ended up at UWC. So I was 15 and one of my friends applied. They told me about the program. And the United World Colleges, I don't know if Kainat explained, I know she went to one too, it's this program that have 18 schools all around the world, and then you apply to the program and then they send you to a country. You can't really choose. So again, I wanted to really go to the Netherlands. They have a school there, and I applied and I got sent to Japan. And it's something that I didn't choose. It's something that I think Japan was my 6th option. So I never even thought of it really. And then I went there completely thrown in the deep. And I absolutely loved it. And then again, I wanted to go to the Netherlands after. And my in grade 11, I applied to this program, which was called Rise for the World. I think 2 of the Baret Scholars students were actually winners of this program. And this program, I believe the first year was a $500,000 prize, and they pay for your university and everything. And I had this idea that if I win this program, I will go to Europe. I would either in the Netherlands or Spain, because I fell in love with learning Spanish actually in grade 11, which is very interesting. And I had this idea that if I win this, I'm going to go to Europe and I'm going to study there. And for a whole year, I worked really, really hard. I ended up being a finalist. And then in my grade 12 year, I unfortunately didn't get it as a finalist. And I thought, this is the end. I worked so hard for this. I sacrificed most of my grades just working on this project, and I didn't get it. And then my guidance counselor told me about Baret. And I completely fell in love with the idea. And then I called Farhad, and I loved my conversation with Farhad. I was actually so invested That okay, the first interview I asked Farhad what was his favorite book, because in the Baret book I don't remember what the book he said was, and then he says, no, that's not my favorite book at all. My favorite book is In Search of Lost Time. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it my mission to impress Farhad. Our next meeting, I'm gonna read In Search of Time. In Search of Time is like one of the longest series books ever. So I used to work as a snowboard instructor then, and every morning and every afternoon I would listen to a podcast of In Search of Time just to know what it's about, so I could impress Farhad in the next meeting. And I made a Baret Scholars shirt. I made a Baret Scholars background. I was like, okay, Christiaan, you're gonna get this. And yeah, I was lucky enough to have gotten it along with my best friend Darius, who also went to UWC. It was funny because at that time, Baret Scholars said that they would only give one scholarship to a UWC student. And I was hesitant of whether to tell Darius because he would be my competition. I ended up telling him and we both got it. So we got lucky. And yeah, that's how I got to Baret.
Wow. I love the intentionality that you brought to that. Like, I'm going to impress Farhad.
Yeah.
Were you actually able to talk about the book with him when you spoke with him the second time?
A little bit, yeah. I don't remember much now, but I remember that time I definitely had my notes. Yeah.
Nice. Well, when it comes to programs like Baret Scholars, we often talk about learning as a really central outcome of the program. Can you share with us anything that you might have unlearned during your travels with Baret Scholars?
Yes, definitely. I think something that I unlearned that's also kind of related to what I talked about in the past of how life is so unpredictable is how you can't control your day. So I think an example that really stood out to me was when we went to Argentina. I applied to Minerva University, which was also another big goal of mine, and I really wanted to get it. And I think there was one day left before the deadline, and I knew I needed to do a bunch of interviews this day. I needed to do a bunch of challenges still. And okay, my plan was, we arrived 6 a.m. in the morning, I think. We get to the hotel and I'm going to spend the whole day doing it. And I got to the hotel and they told us, sorry, but we can only check in at 2. And this is in Ushuaia, the bottom of the world. There was no Wi-Fi and I just had to let go. And then that day, without any gear, me and 3 of my friends, we went hiking. Me, who's coming from South Africa, was basically not used to snow at all. We hiked one of the biggest mountains in Ushuaia in my sweatpants, in not waterproof shoes, and it ended up being one of my best experiences with Baret. So I think, yeah, this happened so much that I learned to be okay with not controlling your day, or unlearned that part of yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Ushuaia, just a quick comment. What a magical place.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Have you been yourself?
So I snuck down there for one day, literally one day, at the invitation of our fellow Daniel Weiser, who had a hike that he wanted to do, and he knew that I run long distances, and so he invited me to come down, and so I planned a couple of days in Buenos Aires, and then ducked down to Ushuaia for one day. And just, wow, what a stunning place.
Yes.
Anyway, beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it. So as I mentioned, it's been 8 months now since the year concluded. And as you've been reflecting on the year, what would you say are some of the main ways in which you have grown?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing again was, it was really, really important for me this year to talk to as many people as I could. And I think one thing I learned is that everyone is just human. I think in the beginning, or in the second part, I went out a lot with Karen, one of our fellows, and Eduardo, which is also one of the staff of Baret. And I was talking to them just like one of my friends, and I was learning so much. And I feel like before that, I was so scared to just talk to adults, learn from them, and go out with them. That was something that, I don't know, I never thought of doing. And I think that's something I really learned this year, that everyone's just a person. You can talk to anyone you want to, and everyone has so much to teach you. I learned that in Brazil when we went to the favelas and I played football with some of the kids. In Rio, in Argentina, when we went to the school, the kids taught me some Spanish, something that I never even thought of doing. That they could teach me something. So I think that's something that I really learned. I also learned that, or I believe I got better at being, or yeah, learning to actually be where you are and not think of. I think in Baret it was so easy to think of the next place where we're going to go because there's so many exciting things that we're going to do. So when we were in Brazil, next we were going to Ushuaia, and it's so easy to think that, okay, if something's not going perfect right now, it's okay. At least we'll go to Ushuaia next. Or in Ushuaia next, we're going to Paris, which is the best city in the world. So I read this book, The Power of Now, which I think really, really changed my mindset of really trying to enjoy what you have now and not thinking of the past, not thinking of the future, and living in the moment, actually trying to understand what people are saying. And yeah, I think those are two of the main lessons that I learned this year.
Those are pretty powerful lessons. I mean, starting with the second one, being able to locate ourselves in the moment is often sort of held up as this ideal. It's also, I mean, think about many spiritual traditions. It's like there's an emphasis often on getting ourselves into the moment and not getting hung up on past mistakes or, super stressed out about the future. So wonderful that you were able to grow in that way during the Baret year. And then the one before that is this recognition that humans have an unlimited capability of connecting with one another.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like you really expanded your ability to do that and your belief in your ability to do that. Is that accurate?
Yes, definitely. I'm curious how much you guys as fellows or as the dean actually got to go out and talk to a bunch of different people. I know for us, it was kind of the idea, but you guys had to look after us and you were very, very busy. How much of the travel did you guys actually get to do?
I think for the fellows, they got to do a lot more than I did.
Yeah.
Because, and that was built into their job description. Fellows led fellowships. And I did not have a well-defined role when it came to fellowships, which really was the fellowships that was the main opportunity to get out, have a smaller group, have more intimate connections, from my perspective, have more intimate connections with students, but then also, of course, with members of the communities that we were visiting. And so I went on fellowships whenever I could. And it was during those times those are the times that I remember most fondly, because that's when I really got, I don't think you and I were ever on fellowship together. Is that right, Christiaan?
No, I remember seeing you the one day or hearing about you the one day in Ushuaia, but I think we missed each other, so right. No.
Yeah, I don't think I actually saw you there. Yeah. So I was able to do a fellowship in North America and in Europe and in Africa. I was able to go to Rwanda. And then in China, I was able to go visit, go on the Inner Mongolia Fellowship. So those were great. Other than that, I knew going into this position, right, that it wasn't designed for me to go and have these connecting moments with folks. It was designed for you all to have those opportunities. And I just seized every opportunity that I could when it came along.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was wonderful. I mean, every single time I was able to do that, it was just the learning that I was able to then undergo was pretty profound as well. Thank you for asking. Okay, so now I want to ask you about the re-entry process. So where did you go right after the program, and what was the re-entry process like for you?
Yeah, so again, my plan was to go to Japan. So I wanted to go to my friend's graduation because, I completed high school there, and I think 8 of my best friends were all going to Japan right after the program. And then last minute, I couldn't get a visa. So I actually went to Hong Kong for 3 days. And then I returned home to South Africa. And I think going home to South Africa was really, really, really hard for me. I think you never really process what you're doing until you're past it. I learned this when I was in Japan, and most winter breaks I stayed on campus. And when I went home for the summer break, I felt like I was a completely new person coming back, because then I actually got to process everything that I did this year, compared to where a winter break where I just stayed on campus and all my friends got to go home and they came back and saying like, wow, like I learned this and this and this. And I just felt like the same person. So I think that really took place for me about Baret when I went home in South Africa. Yeah, it was also really tough because I bought a camera this year. My mom was a photographer, and I just took as many pictures as I could. And I started looking through my photos. I was making a book, and I realized how much I had already forgotten. I looked at photos from 5-6 months ago that I thought I'd remember forever. And I was like, wow, I did this. I completely forgot about this. So that was also a really hard reality to accept, that, yeah, what we did this year is over, and in a year I'm probably gonna not think about this anymore. So that was really, really tough for me. Another thing that was also really tough was me going home and seeing all of my friends that we live together every day have their own lives now. They went back to their own friends in their own countries. They went to their own universities, and yeah, it didn't really hit me that hard in UWC because I went straight into something more exciting. I was super excited about Baret, but after Baret, it really, really hit me hard that all of us have a different life. And yeah.
How did you meet all of these different challenges that you faced?
I 8 of us tried to really, really stay in contact, and I'm a really, really bad runner. And we came up with challenges for each other to every day just stay in contact. So every day during the summer break, I ran a 5K, and that really, really helped me first get out, be active, and yeah, I think really get over things. So it's something that at first I hated doing, and after the summer, I think I ran 8-9K, which I'm a really, really terrible runner. So for me, that was, yeah, I don't know. It really, really helped me take my mind off things. I think grow as a person doing something that I hated doing, and also keep in contact with, yeah, everyone that was my closest friend. And yeah, I think even get us even closer, helping us stay in touch. So yeah.
Good. I'm really glad that you've taken the opportunity to stay in touch with folks. And I mean, you're even living with right, a fellow Baret scholar. I feel like really any intense experience, but something as extended as Baret scholars, how do we even convince ourselves that it was real, that it actually happened?
That's so interesting. I want to stop you there at, yeah, me living with one of my Baret scholars. I feel like a bunch of my friends pointed out that for us, because we had each other, I had Nico and I had Kainat, it didn't feel like when we came back here that Baret really ended. It felt like after a winter break and we got back together and our bond was still there because we were all really close in the program. Whereas my friends that were all alone at their university, it was completely over for them. They didn't have anyone from Baret. It was a completely new life for them. I feel like we in the beginning were still kind of living in that dream world of, okay, wow, we have all of these friends, we have each other, we can, yeah, travel anytime. So yeah, I think that's also a very, very big difference between us and the people who didn't have any of the Baret people around them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I mean, we create reality in relationship with people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So traveling the world with peers from over 40 countries, you know a thing or two about how to communicate and collaborate across cultures. What insights have you gained in this regard as a result of your experience?
That's interesting. I feel like this year I really realized first I want to start with me. I feel like I really started to think for myself. I feel like when we grow up, it's so easy to believe what my parents believe, what my grandparents believe, what my friends around me believe. And then I travel and I speak to all of these people and I realized, okay, well, maybe that's not what I believe anymore. I want to make these decisions for myself. So in the beginning, I feel like it was very, very tough. At least in the beginning of Bahrain, it was completely different. In UWC, it was also I think it was 80 international students. I was 200, so I also had some challenges there. But it was very, very different from Bahrain. It was like completely starting over again. And in the beginning of Bahrain, all of us had these very, very, very different ideologies that I don't know, came from our parents, that came from our countries. And I feel like seeing most of my friends, what they believed in the beginning and what they believed in the end, is incredible how much we have all changed as people and as what we believe in. And I think that comes from speaking to most of these people. I think it's so hard to believe something when you haven't been to a favela in Rio and see how they actually lived, or in Sri Lanka and see these kids who basically don't have a school without a roof, going to these schools. And without speaking to these people, it's so hard to actually understand where they come from and see why they believe what they believe. I think that was really interesting in why we changed what we believed. I think let me go back to the questions. The question.
Go ahead.
No. I'm just thinking. In terms of how how we bigger than just what we believe in the actual language. I'm thinking of when I was a snowboard instructor in Japan. I didn't speak any Japanese, and finding a way to talk to these little kids, I tried to find what we had in common. So my surname is Burger, and all Japanese students knew Burger. So I was just trying to see what we had in common and then make use of that. So as a snowboard instructor, I would teach them a burger flip, and they would die laughing. They would fall on the ground laughing. And I think that's what made our lesson so great, just finding what we have in common and then working from there. So,
Yeah, well, you've hit upon a well-known strategy for bridging across differences, which is finding commonalities. Actually, there's a brain chemical called oxytocin that gets generated through discovering commonalities with other people and binds us together. Whereas, the brain might naturally want to see somebody else as a threat. If you can find commonalities, that's a great, at least an entry point into a deeper and more meaningful relationship.
I'm so curious about you, because I know you're a linguist and you worked a lot of time in China. How was it for you going to China for the first time, working with people who have ideologies so different to you? What's your experience there?
Yeah, so one of the main motivators, I didn't know it at the time, but when I look back, one of the main motivators for me getting into international education and specifically intercultural leadership development was my failures in my first year in China. And the fact that I did not, I was an East Asian Studies major as an undergrad. I had 2 years of Mandarin. I could recite all the Chinese dynasties. And then I showed up there completely unequipped to deal with what my brain was doing to me, which was completely freaking out. Oh my God, this is so different. Oh my God, what the heck? And I didn't know what the heck had hit me. Yes, I understood culture shock was a thing, but, we didn't have any meaningful workshops before we went over. And so it was really that crucible experience of that first year that I feel like I suffered so much in my own mind, and I just didn't want, it was a great year too, right? I wouldn't change anything about it because, it was an absolutely amazing year. And it became clear to me that it didn't have to be that painful. That yes, of course, there should be, you're not going to learn anything if you're too comfortable. And at the same time, there is too much discomfort. And so that, that's now there's fancy theories. They call it balancing challenge and support. I don't know if I ever introduced to you all the comfort zone, learning zone, panic zone model or not, but I was in my panic zone for a good part of that year. And so, since then I've done a lot of different things, and have just tried to consistently get better at the brain management strategies. So, when difference and unfamiliarity are present, recognizing that, that's a trigger for my threat detection mechanism in my brain. So then you use strategies to calm that down, learn as much as I can about how to adapt my behavior in culturally appropriate and culturally helpful ways, and then try to do so. So, it's definitely gotten better over the years. And then, of course, as I want to do as much as I can to kind of pass this on to others, as well as continue to learn and grow in this way myself. Yeah. So that's the probably the briefest possible version of my long career in this realm. But thank you for asking that too, Christiaan.
Very interesting. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, no problem. So you are now at university, first year. You planning on being there for 4 years at St. Lawrence?
Well, at the university for 4 years, yes, but I'm doing a Spanish minor, and our school has really good study abroad programs. So next year I'm going to Spain for a semester, and then in my third year I'm going to go to Costa Rica. That's also why I kind of wanted to ask you about your time in China and how you adapted and how you made the most of learning the language, because as a Spanish minor, I'm gonna have to do that in Spain, in Costa Rica. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about that. And then I'm also doing a major in economics and math. So yeah, the rest of the 3 years I'll focus on that.
You're very busy young man. What part of Spain will you be in next? You said next fall?
Yes. Next fall. I'm gonna be in. Next spring.
Next spring.
Okay. January 2027. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna be in Madrid for 5 months.
And then where in Costa Rica?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah, because I have to pass an advanced Spanish class before I can go. There, all the classes are in Spanish, so if I pass that, then I can go. Then I can focus on that. But that's the goal for now.
Great. So by the time you get to Costa Rica, your Spanish should be at a pretty darn high level, and you'll just be using it every single day. The advice that I have for you is actually not advice that I have followed myself, because I didn't really become aware of this advice until after my Mandarin had gotten pretty good. But there's an author, an American author named Peter Hessler, who's written a lot of books about China. And he shared in the very first book that he wrote about China, called Rivertown, he was a Peace Corps volunteer, and he shared about his strategy for studying Chinese. So as a teacher, he was Peter Hessler, the foreign expert American teacher. But as a student of Chinese, he was a different person. And he recognized that. And so he had a Chinese name, He Wei. And what he actually did in his apartment is he got a second desk. And when he was preparing his teaching lessons, he was at one desk and he was Peter Hessler. And when he was working on his Chinese at his other desk, he was He Wei. And whenever he was out practicing his Chinese, he was He Wei. And what that enabled him to do is, one of the things that I know has impeded my language learning, and that I think is a fairly common obstacle to people wanting to become proficient in languages that aren't their first language, is the ego. It's a sense of identity. Like, I am this person in my own language that I can't, it's like this standard that there's no way that I'm possibly going to reach in this language, this new language for me. And I don't want to come across as like a fool or an idiot. So I'm just not going to speak. I'm just not going to try. That fear of looking incompetent to others, I think, can be a real obstacle. And he just, by creating this separate identity for himself, just cleared that issue completely out of the way. And he was able to, that enabled him to just take risks and experiment, try new things. And he ended up learning Chinese really fast. So, like I say, it's not advice that I followed, so I don't know what it's like. What I would say is just, if you could do something like, come to peace, make your peace with the fact that your Spanish is your Spanish, and that you are a different version of Christiaan. Maybe you have a different name, even, right? A different identity. And hopefully that, that could free you up. So I'll stop there. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, very much. That's so interesting. I think for me, when I was learning English too, when I went to UWC, it was so difficult for me to start thinking in English. I was thinking in Afrikaans and then translating everything. And then it's interesting that now I kind of do it the opposite way. I'm so used to speaking English; it's kind of become my first language. And now when I go home, I speak English with my mom.
Mm,
But yeah, I like what you said about the separate personality, because I think that kind of forces you to not only speak the language, but kind of start thinking in that language. And that's how you actually learn it. To
mm.
not thinking English, think this is an apple, and then have to translate it to Mandarin or Spanish or whatever. So that's so interesting. Thank you,
Yes.
Jason.
Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate you asking me the question because I really could. I could talk about this stuff forever, but this is ultimately about you. This conversation. Well, that sounds like you've got a lot of really exciting things planned, and I guess maybe not too surprisingly, more global travel, global learning. Um, Last question I have for you is: we live in a world that is full of suffering, and a lot of that suffering is caused by human beings. And it can be easy to feel overwhelmed, to lose hope, to tune out, disconnect. Have you got any words to encourage us about the future?
Yes. Um, I feel like there's this quote that I heard that really stuck with me when I was at UWC. It says it's not what you have, but what you make of what you have. So when I was traveling during this year, I saw all of these horrible places. I saw the favelas in Rio, and yeah, the school in Sri Lanka, and in Argentina, these kids who barely have a home, and they're winning these science prizes at this incredible school that helps them. And I see them laughing and I see them having fun, and I I recognize that there's a lot of suffering in this world, but I really feel like each of us have the ability to do something great with what we have. So yeah, I think that really, really stuck with me. It's not what we have, but what we make of what we have.
Mm.
And yeah, I think that's my words of wisdom for today.
Excellent. Good. Thank you for sharing that, Christiaan. Is there anything else that you'd care to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
Not to share, but I'm very curious. You
Mm,
asked me a lot today about what we learned and how we grew. I'm curious, you as a dean,
mm,
how you see all of us changing. I know you spoke to a lot of us in New York, and I think by China, we were all very, very, very different people. I wonder how
mm.
you see us grew and how you think we changed as a person. Maybe the ups and downs.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And I think it's hard for me to it's hard for me to kind of assess that for a couple of reasons. One is I didn't know any of you before Baret Scholars, and then of course it took me quite a while to get to know each of you on different timelines as well. Um, what I will say is, as a group, and in the voiceover intro to the podcast, I share about this a little bit as well, which was the community that you all formed with one another was absolutely unlike anything that I had ever seen before. And so I'll talk about essentially the end state of the group, which I'm sure was different from, I mean, you all took really good care of each other from the start. And when you showed up in New Hampshire at orientation, it was clear that you were already wanting to come together as a group. I did have a front row seat to many of the conflicts in the group because, I mean, really most of the conflicts were handled by the fellows in the house structure, but occasionally things would get bumped up to the deans to deal with. And so I did have a front row seat to how some of the conflicts were unfolding. And I definitely noticed a trend throughout the year that there was a greater ability to work through them, I think, more quickly and with more mutual understanding. Ultimately, when I talk about the end state of the group, what I mean is I've never seen a community that was so unabashedly and unapologetically loving of one another and caring for one another. I truly, truly never seen anything like it. And, of course, it's not a perfect or an ideal. There's no such thing. We're humans, right? But as far as human communities go, it was pretty darn close to ideal, is what I felt like. Did you feel that too, Christiaan?
I definitely agree. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I also just want to thank you. I think in New York, in orientation, you gave us the speech, and you said that the low is definitely gonna come. And in New Hampshire, I didn't believe you. I called my mom that day, and I was like, "Yeah, our dean told us like, yeah, the low is gonna come," and I said no way. And then in Brazil, I felt end of Brazil, I started feeling that low. And I think your speech really, really motivated me to stay positive and know that the wheel turns and that the high will definitely come. And I think that's helping me even now at university when I'm feeling down, knowing that the high will definitely come. So I want to say thank you and know that your speech or your words really do have an impact, even if it's just small sentences like these. So yeah, thank you, Jason.
You're welcome, Christiaan. And thank you so much for sharing that with me, because there's really no way for me to know what the impact is unless somebody shares it with me. So thank you for sharing that with me. And it really, truly is the honor and privilege of a lifetime to be able to spend time with young folks traveling the world. I mean, that's why I signed up to do it in the first place. It's just like, oh, are you kidding me? Is this real? So yeah, it was an absolute privilege and honor for me to do it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to reflect on with regard to you all and how you grew. I guess there's one other thing about it, which is that I don't think that I've like when I say I've never seen anything like it. I've been in this field for a while, right? And I've had a lot of different roles in international education, and I really have truly never seen anything like it. And that's meaningful because I feel like you all, and again, there is no utopia, there is no perfect community, but I feel like the way that you loved and cared for one another really, truly is a model for humanity. And that is something that is absolutely priceless. And it makes me so happy to know that, you know, that you and Nico and Kainat are there together at St. Lawrence, and that you're still keeping in touch with other Baret Scholars, because that is a reality. When I talk about, you know, we create reality in community with others. That's a reality. The community is something real. It's something tangible, and it's something powerful. And I dearly hope that you all will keep your community alive. And it sounds like you are definitely doing that. And that makes me very happy and very excited and very hopeful.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I think something a lot of us worried about at the end of Baret was that we left the best year of our lives when we were 19. And a while ago, we had a call with our house. My fellow was Karen, and she told us to make sure that this wasn't the best year, but that was the standard of how we're going to live for the rest of our lives. And I think so far we've really been trying to uphold that. We went to Mexico City recently, and we had a reunion of 10 Baret Scholars, and we're already planning to go to Guatemala for this summer, a bunch of us. And I think that's so interesting to strive for that, to let this year be the standard of how we should live the rest of our life. Something so incredible. Yeah, I think that's a very ambitious and very right way to live for all of us.
That's a beautiful and powerful framing from Karen, and I'm really glad that she framed it that way for you, and I'm really glad that you're bought into it. 100% agree.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome, Christiaan, and thank you for spending time with us today. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Christiaan. If you did, please tell at least one friend about it. Give us a 5-star rating and follow the podcast. That will help others find us. Until next time, let's keep our heads clear and our hearts open.